SFU and many of the other institutions in Canada are taught by precarious instructors. I myself was one of them, so I know very much what that is like, and that there are specific impacts then for these instructors. So Nicole Stewart is a PhD candidate and term lecturer with the School of Communication here at SFU. And Rahman is graduated with his PhD in communications also from SFU, and is now just started as an assistant professor in communications at the University of Washington, but luckily for his health is still currently physically in Vancouver. So welcome to both of you. Very happy to have you here. And I wonder if we could, is there anything you want to add to my introduction?
No, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Gretchen.
Great, wonderful. Well, so we thought we would just take, kind of do this in an interview format rather than a presentation, maybe a little bit more dynamic, hopefully. And so I'm just going to ask about 3 questions to Nicole and Anis. They can each comment on each question. And then after that, we'd love to hear from those of you who are here today in the audience about your thoughts, your comments, reactions, and responses to what Nicole and Anis have shared with us today. So I'll just get going. Anis, and let's start with Nicole and then go over to Anis. What really motivated you to write this article, or what was the catalyst?
I think we were in the weekend that SFU had said we are going live online on Monday. It was Friday. Our good friend Pippa set up a Facebook page for precarious workers. So TAs, term lecturers, anyone who is in that sort of part-time limited role within our department. And everyone was sharing these great ideas. And I had this thought as I had this impending doom at the same time, thinking, we should be recording this moment in time and our experience as we have it. So the Facebook group was kind of the catalyst that brought us together along with a larger group of people. And then I guess I was emailing people about this strange idea I had, and people were maybe thinking I was a little bit crazy, but I ended up inviting Anis Rahman, John Hughes, and Philippa Adams to do an autoethnographic research on our experience of moving to emergency remote teaching. So that's, I guess, how it got started. This great Facebook group that built a connection, and then me reaching out to other members and other people being willing to go along with me.
And Anis, what motivated you then to join this group of 4 and do this autoethnographic research?
Yes, as Nicole put in addition to her amazing skill to organize a group and leadership with this project particularly, I would also give credit to the school's culture among graduate students to share, to express their solidarity, and to unite when there is a need or time for crisis, or if there is any question that is pressing everybody, not just TA or instructor, but a graduate student population as a whole, both for masters and PhD students. And our school is one of the largest employer of teaching assistants, because we have lots of undergraduate courses we offer, and that we needed a platform to talk about this. And that's where we found the inspiration to combine our experiences together.
I think it's an important part of our building of our own resilience as well. I think we all felt like building resilience necessarily meant connecting. For example, Anis and I didn't really know each other, even though I emailed him to invite him in on this project. We had met in passing. And I think that speaks to the time that we were in. And also, like Anis said, that camaraderie that exists even when we didn't know each other, that feeling that we could connect and that we were able to. And it was part of our own necessary strength building, resilience building to what was unfolding before all of us.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. And so now this is the big question, so I'll leave you to maybe just look at sort of maybe 3 main points, but what would you say you found about the impacts of COVID-19 on precarious instructors per se? Like what were some of the key learnings, if you will, from this work that you did? Maybe just pick 3 because that's a big question. Would you want to start? Maybe I'll start with Anis this time.
Yes, we have several areas that we primarily identified 4 areas where the transformation has most impact on us. So it started with logistic or technological change, with having to shift online and needing to converge our home life with the office or the work life. So that had an impact of two-way street on both with the student and teacher communication, as well as communication between us and the school. But we also realized that a lot of that was actually with pre-existing conditions in which our precarity was not enabling us to work the best that we do in person. Such as with our family conditions, kids, and having to have a workspace in the first place. So that logistics then expanded into the politics of our ability in terms of class, gender. In my case, it was also race, particularly because I perform better in person than online. So I've been teaching 36 classes in past 4 years in several institutions, including SFU. But this is first time I realized how off I sound when it is going through technology, such as a camera and a speaker. So I lost part of confidence in me as an instructor. I became an immigrant instructor again, but also I was able to still continue my work because my wife was looking after 2 kids who were at home and the school were closed. And I think Nicole was also feeling a very different gender dimension into this. The third point we had all common was the shared stress of immediate transformation and lack of communication between the center, which is the university, and then the department with the workers such as us. In one case, students were informed what to do ahead of the teachers. And there was also a stress over our financial capacity to cope up with this transformation. So, Nicole?
I think Anis really hit everything. And even though he says that his voice was bothering him, I think he's amazing. So I think that part of that internal struggle is our own insecurity as precarious workers. I also work at another institution and I had some of my summer courses cut. So that was just a reality, this constant stress that we didn't have a secure job to go to. So all of those other issues that Anis outlined, yeah, sure, they were probably there for permanent faculty, but we felt them at a more amplified level. And I think our friend John said it best. He said, I rock in the classroom, but this technological, I couldn't do it. And I was so worried I wasn't going to be hired back based on evaluations. And at that point, we didn't know if evaluations even were happening or how they were happening. So there was just a lot of added stress to not having job security.
That reminds me actually of something in your article where I think it says that at least one of you, maybe all of you, felt that you had to start right away again the next week, whereas you think that perhaps people who had who were not in a precarious situation might have taken time a week to reassess. I even saw faculty who didn't actually really go online with their classes per se. They went to asynchronous and just, you know, making an assignment as opposed to trying to continue teaching. So I was just wondering if that was one way that precarity sort of affected you, that feeling like you had to perform at all times, right? You couldn't take that time for adjustment. What other ways do you think that precarity affected you, possibly differentially or in a particular way?
I think that's a conversation our group had a lot. We didn't feel like we could breathe. We just had to keep going and we didn't have a choice to kind of stand back. We just had to go at full force. And even though I'm very technologically literate, some of our members of our team weren't, but it didn't matter because not all the technological systems were in place for us to do a good job. So we were effectively trying to do our best while almost being set up for failure at the same time because we didn't have the applications and platforms available. Anis, what do you think?
Yes, absolutely. I want to also acknowledge we have Milan Singh, an alumni from the same school where I am. And she's also a very experienced and skilled instructor and now research manager for TLC. What I would add to this is that we often as a TA, we take the full load. mental load and academic load, intellectual load as full professors when we teach. I had a class more than 200 students. I taught 2 classes when that transformation has happened. But what happened that the TAs were also lost, and one of the TAs did not even have the ability to continue internet at home because the TA used to work in libraries and offices. And the department was not really immediately very helpful or resourceful in providing logistic. So if I was a tenure track assistant professor, I would have an office that I could invite my TA to share. If I had access to computers, I could let the TAs to borrow it or use it in a way that doesn't take a financial stress on the TA. So in addition to preparing, let's say 30 to 40 hours for the whole 2-3 weeks excess time, we did not get compensated. If you are a tenure track, you get compensated in various ways. The department, the institution make it up for you by other mechanisms such as research funding, such as conference travel, such as extra honorarium for your services and duties. But this entire preparation, both on the teaching assistant's part and the instructor's part, there were no compensation. There were no logistic support in first 2-3 weeks. That for the department, it took about 1 whole month, and the SFU as a whole, to figure out what kind of support provided. But what I must give credit to is the Teaching and Learning Center. They had this support mechanism with the websites, informations, and some cases video training that were very helpful to figure out teaching in Zoom, using Canvas for recording, and engaging students with various activities. That's something I would say SFU was best at. But in terms of providing support logistically and providing compensation for the time and stress that we endured, SFU did not provide enough support.
In my experience as a sessional, I don't know if you've had the same experience, but when I was a sessional, and I found that a lot of the things you're saying were true kind of all the time. Like I was usually just thrown into teaching a class and had no support from the department. I mean, nobody told me what course outline has been used before, what content has been taught before, what textbook has been used before, like how many people, you got no information and no support. You just figure it out yourself, right? You figure out, you contact the audio people, So I don't know, it seems to me that COVID, it's not so much that it brings particular pressures to bear, but it seems more just like it exacerbates kind of an existing situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then was it where do you feel this pressure coming from to sort of perform and always and being worried? Is it the worry about evaluations? Like where does the real sort of pressure come from?
Lenise and I are both parents, so we have little kids that we need to take care of. It's not that we're these young 20-somethings. We have families and we have responsibilities and bills and payments, and this is our livelihood. It's something that we're trying to build. And so there's concerns about hire back for monetary reasons to take care of your family, but I think there's also concerns about long-term hireability, because we're in these long PhD programs and you want to be able to do something with it by the time you're done. And also, as term lecturer positions maybe dry up or they aren't offered as readily for graduate students, it puts additional pressure on us because we may not have the experience that universities are looking for later.
Yeah, that brings me to my next question, which is about sort of past the sort of initial crisis of the first few weeks there, when you had to transition already existing courses onto an online format. How has it then affected you, perhaps moving forward into the summer, into the fall? That's not in your article, but I'm just wondering if you have any comments about that.
Well, first, to recognize our being able to reflect on our own privileged position, but that's a relative privilege. We are still employed compared to many unemployed, and God knows what happened to their family in case there was a COVID infection. So we are lucky to have, even if it is a precarious job. But at the same time, to reconcile two forms of extreme guilt. One is the professor guilt, that you're failing students, you're failing your colleagues, you're failing the institution. And then the parents' guilt, like you're failing your partner and your kids. These two cannot go hand in hand, and it is not sustainable for the long term. But as we presented this at the Cambridge University conference, and one of the professors mentioned, the pandemic did not cause this. Pandemic revealed what was the problem all along. So this is a problem of neoliberalization of academia, in which more and more precarious laborers are providing labor at the expense of converting or diverting part of the assets and income to other forms, such as administration, such as commodifying and budget cut, also impacting on ability to afford welfare for the part-time workers. So this is a structural problem, and what we have been going through is the symptoms or the byproducts of such neoliberalization of academia. And one thing is clear, that we were not adequately trained or prepared to deal with this, but also we had to deal with applications for permanent positions elsewhere or even within the school. So the transformation from TSSU to term lecturer language contract is also language of politics, as our friend John Hughes has put it in our work, is that if SFU was sufficiently taking precautions for such kind of uncertainties, we would have already 1 year term lecturer, limited term lecturer position, not for 4 months. So if university was more honest and ethical in exploiting the labor of precarious workers, the university would have been in a more better position, more resilient position, more sustainable position to deal with challenges like this that was revealed by the pandemic. I hope the university can learn from this, and more instructors will have more, let's say, at least 2 year or 3 year position instead of 1 semester. And there would be also benefits, not just MSP, but also benefits for buying equipment such as computers or internet, paying for internet, that we cannot be eligible if you are a one-term lecturer for now. But there should be also support, for example, for parents who are instructors as part-timer, including daycare and extra subsidies for instructor who have kids and they have to take care of that too. But many more ideas. We're looking forward to more ideas shared by the members.
Those are great. I really like that you made the link to the idea that the university can actually be more resilient if perhaps it has a little bit more stability in terms of its lectures. And I think a lot of people don't realize when they look at the pool of TAs and term instructors and sessional instructors that often those are not grad students. Sometimes they are. I mean, and it's part of your sort of package for being able to go to school and have some kind of income. But it's also people who have graduated and who continue into these kinds of roles where they only have four months at a time work, right? And that's a lot of pressure.